Erie Zone Government Access, Channel 9, from the City Hall Council Chambers, it's time once again for the Taxpayers Hotline Show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Kaz is up in the state of Minnesota today, so he asked me to take over so we could take some phone calls today. I'm John Steiner. I'm with Mecca and the Perry 200. I have a special guest with me today. This is
Carl Anderson. I'm chairman of the Legacy Committee of the Perry 200.
Carl and I, we go back a long ways, and he's involved in a lot of different things in the community, but just let everybody know the phone lines are open today, so hopefully you guys will call in. Somebody already called before we got on the air. But Carl and I are going to touch on a couple different topics that are going on in the city. One of the ones that we want to talk about is the final event, I guess, for the Perry 200 celebration, the Tall Ships Festival and things like that. And Carl's been doing some extensive research for the commission. And maybe I'll ask Carl to talk about the final event that's coming up in September.
Are we allowed to tell people how long we've known each other?
No, yeah, we've known each other for how long?
A couple years.
Couple years. Too long, right? Too long?
Back in the neighborhood.
Back in the old days, the
Lower East Side of Erie, proud place to grow up and live.
Yeah, but why don't we talk about the Perry 200 stuff? When exactly is the Tall Ships Festival?
Well, the Tall Ships Festival is going to begin on September 5th. It actually runs from September 5th to the 7th, and we'll begin with a tremendous parade of sails beginning at 4 p.m. on the 5th of September. And it's just a spectacular sight to see all of those ships come in parade format, and it should be really a tremendous weekend for Erie.
Okay, I think the flagship is in Green Bay this week. I think I saw in the newspaper.
The flagship's out on the road, or out on the seas, I guess is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
But
it's on tour.
It's on tour, but we'll be back home, and we'll be leading the parade of sails right into its home port.
What type of events are scheduled for the final day? I think would that be the 8th or the 9th?
Well, the whole weekend is really going to be a plethora of events throughout the community, but September 8th is going to be the beginning of the grand finale of the Perry 200, in which the Erie Philharmonic will be playing a concert down at Liberty Park. There'll be activities out at the Perry Memorial, and there'll be fireworks that night. There'll be possibly some cannons being shot off, and it will all culminate in the lighting of the relighting, I should say, of the Eternal Flame out at the Perry Memorial. And it's kind of an interesting story about why we're talking about the relighting of it.
What story would that be?
Well, at the Perry Monument, there had always been an eternal flame there. And during the Second World War, there was fears that it became a beacon for potential enemy. It was a landmark for enemies coming in from Canada, potentially invading through Canada. And so they extinguished the flame and then never relit it after the Second World War. And so it's been dark since 1941.
So as a safety precaution?
Started out as a safety precaution for the community because it was such a bright beacon, giving them the landmark of the Presque Isle and then into the bay and the city.
Right. I know that you've been working on bringing a group of people to this community. Why don't you tell the people watching some of the things you've been working on for the Perry 200?
Well, one of the things that we've been busy working on, and of course through the efforts of our general chairs, Dr. William Garvey and Mayor Joyce Savacchio, who have really been working tirelessly to make sure that all of these events happen, and the community should thank them for all the efforts that they've put forward. But I had been commissioned by them to see what we could potentially find on living descendants of Daniel Dobbins. And Daniel Dobbins, we want to focus on. In the last weekend, he kind of takes a back seat to the glory that Oliver Hazard Perry has received for the victory of the Battle of Lake Erie. But it was really Erie's own Daniel Dobbins who was responsible for having that fleet built here. He oversaw the building of the fleet. He commissioned the men who came in here, the carpenters and the engineers. Moses Brown, when he came in, was commissioned by Daniel Dobbins. And for the first 50 years of Erie's existence, Daniel Dobbins was really the pinnacle of the social graces of Erie. And so one of the things that we had been working on, and as chairman of the Legacy Committee for the commission, we wanted to see what potentially we could find on some of the living descendants of Daniel Dobbins.
So were we successful in finding some of these folks, and what, where are they located, and, what do they feel about?
Yeah, I think Erie will have some very special guests that final weekend, and I've been able to locate a couple families who are direct descendants of Daniel Dobbins. They would be third and fourth great-grandchildren of his, and it's kind of interesting. Daniel Dobbins and his wife, Mary West, had 10 children, and out of the 10 children, only 3 of the children have living descendants today. And out of those 3 children, there's 4 different family groups that have descendants, and we've been in contact with each of those family groups.
And have they been receptive to finding, first of all, did they even know they were relatives of Daniel Dobbins, or what was their reaction?
That's an interesting question that you asked, John, because I was amazing to find out that none of the people that I was in contact with knew to the extent of, and some of them didn't even know anything about their ancestor, Daniel Dobbins. And so each of those families are very excited to find that connection, to be able to, for us to contact them, and they're very excited about their connection to Erie and very proud of their connection to Daniel Dobbins. And we will have some of those family members here for that weekend as special guests of Erie.
Where in the United States have you tracked these people down? I mean, where do they reside at this point?
Well, there's two family groups in the Philadelphia area. One of the great-grandsons of Daniel Dobbins moved to Philadelphia, and his family remains down there. One of the other sons of Daniel Dobbins moved to Buffalo, and then later his descendants have moved to the Philadelphia, Baltimore area. So those are 2 of the family groups. There's another family group between Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. And then finally, there's a family group out in California. And it's kind of an interesting story with the group out in California of their connection to Dobbins.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you tell me there was a Dobbins, California?
Exactly, and that's the interesting connection. When I had been in touch with these folks, there is a Dobbins, California. There is a post office there, residents of about 585 people, somewhere in that range, very small community, but still remains, has the name of Daniel Dobbins, or Dobbins, California. And these folks live actually fairly close to Dobbins, California, and never knew why their family lived there or the family connection to Dobbins. But Dobbins, California was actually settled by 2 of Daniel Dobbins' sons who went to California during the California Gold Rush in 1849. The oldest son, William West Dobbins, who later came back to Erie, died in Erie and is buried here in the Erie Cemetery. And then the youngest child and the youngest son of Daniel Dobbins, Marcus Dobbins, who also went by Mark Dobbins, was a lieutenant colonel in the Army and was in the Civil War, was a hero in the Civil War, became a permanent settler of California, was the district justice in Yuma County, California, and stayed out there and died, but he was one of the children that didn't have any issue. So there's no direct descendants from Mark Dobbins, nor are there direct descendants from William West Dobbins. Both of those gentlemen were the ones that founded Dobbins, California.
It just seems that, Oliver Hazard Perry is just the main face of the the Battle of Lake Erie. And it just seems like, I don't know if you agree, but it seems like some of these other guys have been kind of put on the back burner, and we don't pay homage to them for some of the attributes that they brought to this community. Let's talk about Elliot. I mean, why don't we pay as much attention to Elliot as we do? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that, again, Elliot took a back seat to Oliver Hazard Perry. Perry was the person who ultimately was put in command of the naval forces, and so, particularly back then, the top guy got the credit, and to the victors goes the spoils, so to speak. But then the Americans were so desperately looking for a victory at that time during the War of 1812 that they really just began to rally around Oliver Hazard Perry as that central figure. And then, of course, Perry and his group of people did a very good public relations job with making sure that they stayed the central focal point. And it's really why some of these other people have kind of taken a back seat. But, particularly with Daniel Dobbins, he was the person, as we said, responsible for building the fleet here, and he was the captain of one of the ships. But to make sure that there was no reason to share the glory with Daniel Dobbins, as soon as the fleet got out on the lake, Daniel Dobbins was ordered back to Erie to pick up supplies that were supposedly left behind. And so he actually missed the battle and missed his moment in glory when, in fact, he was the one responsible for making it happen. Right.
Well, throughout our travels, you've told me, as we drive around some of the famous roads throughout Erie County, because, a lot of the land force, they settled here in Erie County.
Right.
Why don't, tell the people listening because a lot of people see these names on the roads, but they don't know where they come from, me included.
Yeah, even more interesting than just the difference between Dobbins and Perry and who got the credit. There's another thing happening that's happened in the community over the years, and that is the difference between the naval forces and the land forces. And the naval forces, as we've said before on the show, were really brought here as professional fighting men and went on to careers in the Navy and left Erie. They came to Erie to fight and then left Erie and went on to other stations. But the land forces that were here, that were protecting the harbor, protecting the ability to even be able to build the ships, and protecting from a potential invasion from Canada, most of those people stayed here. They were early settlers here. They fought to protect their land. Many of them came up from Meadville, from Venango County, Mercer County, and a lot of those people stayed here. And they are really the people that made up the heart of what has become our community as Erie County. And in doing that, having many of these early farms throughout Erie County and some of the early businesses in the city, of course, names of roads naturally began to be named after each of these families, and the list could go on, but beginning right with a place close to my home where I grew up between Ash and Wallace on 6th Street. Wallace Street is named after Lieutenant Colonel John Wallace, one of the first doctors here in Erie, and the commander of one of the regiments the Erie contingency during the War of 1812. Wallace Street is one of those old-time Erie neighborhoods, and certainly goes back right to the beginning of our community, and so was named for, rightfully so, for John Wallace.
Interesting. Just let everybody know that the phone lines are open. Nobody's calling today. You and I, we talk all the time. We want to hear what everybody else has to say
Well,
today.
we certainly want to know what's on the minds of the people in the community, and we can talk about some other issues today. John, I've done quite a bit of talking in some of the upcoming events of what's going on in the Perry 200, but you've been really involved in some of the events that had just taken place in the 4th of July. Right. And certainly I think we in the community should thank you for the efforts that you and your committee put forward in making those things happen throughout Erie County, not just in the city, but then also 3 celebrations in the county. And over a year of planning to make that happen. Right. It was really a tremendous success for the community. And do you think, tell us a little about that and what happened in the planning process, and also do you think that this weekend, this final weekend in September, can live up to what your committee had done in the 4th of July?
Well, I tell you, when traveling around all of Erie County, getting everybody on the same page and setting up, the different events throughout the county was definitely, it was a challenging task. It seemed like, we had partnered with the folks out in Mercyhurst Northeast, so they had pretty much their own committee. We just added on to what they were doing out there. But it seemed like, the people in the South County, at first they were a little hesitant in getting involved and planning, and they didn't see the vision of exactly what we were trying to do at first. But as time went along, people like Nancy Augustine and some of the county commissioners down there and the different groups started to get active. The people in Waterford, their mayor and some of the people that are on their parks committee down there, once they started to see that this was really going to happen and that they were going to get a fireworks display down there and we wanted bands in the park, I think it really took off down there. And overall, they were ecstatic with the way things turned out. We had went down to the Waterford Fairgrounds to watch the fireworks, and it was estimated about 30,000 people down there. The traffic, it was so crowded down there that the people were out on the streets taking pictures, and it was definitely a phenomenal event. Gibson Fireworks put on a great display out there. And in the West County, they had a really great committee of different people from Girard, Mill Creek, and Fairview, and those areas out there, the Lake City area, combined with a lot of the medical staff or the EMTs and the fire departments out there. I think that we had the event in the afternoon that went from 3 to 7. There was about 3,000 people out there to 3,500 during the day. We had the earthquakers out there, the fire trucks were. We had bouncy, those bouncy jump things, and we had Mercier's Prep was out there selling things and different vendors, and I think that went well. And then the fireworks display at Girard High School was, I think there was 25,000 people they were estimating out there, 20 to 25, and we were getting emails at the Jefferson Society from people in those areas saying how wonderful it was and it was the greatest display that they had ever seen. And it was good to have all these communities working together. There's a city-county mentality versus each other, but there's also a Girard versus Fairview and Mill Creek versus, they all have their own little fiefdoms out there. And finally trying to get these people to work together, it was difficult at first because, and it still is. But, hey, somebody wants to talk other than us. Taxpayers Hotline, go ahead.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Pretty good. How's it going, buddy?
Not too bad. Hey, I called last week about the garbage and that being left out here at 613 and 617 East 13th Street. And I just wanted to thank Mr. Zimmerman because obviously they heard me talking, and they posted a notice on the door, and said that putting the garbage out before it's time is, they could be fined in that, and they cleaned that crap up. So hopefully they'll keep it cleaned up now. But it's all been cleaned up. So I just wanted to, when the city does something correctly, I want to make sure that they're given credit for it. So I just wanted to call and thank them guys for cleaning this up here, because this was getting very messy. But
I remember you had called last week. You were talking about going to the weekly watch group over on 13th and Wayne, or 13th and Wallace over there. Did you ever get a chance to make it over there?
I ended up working over, John. I didn't make the meeting, but I'm going to try to get involved, because like I said, that they do try to keep the neighborhood clean and stuff like that, and it's just fortunate that the city, obviously, not at least other people complained, and I don't see anyone else complaining, because that stuff's been sitting there for months.
Right.
And here I call Taxpayer Hotline, and bam, it's cleaned up. So,
well, even though,
I want to get involved with the neighborhood watch for sure.
Well, that's John and Kaz in action for you.
well, that's what, people, they do in this building watch this show. They do pay attention, and sometimes, they will, do what they need to do to help the callers out. And that's basically what this show is about, because sometimes it's hard to get a hold of people when they're on the road or if they're busy or doing something. But they do watch the show upstairs, and there's been times when people have called here with questions, and Jim Clem, who is a savior in this building, I tell you what, him and his staff, they're right next door, and they give us all the information that we need. And especially with Kaz not being here today, hopefully if somebody has a question, they'll help us out. But definitely get involved with that watch group over there, because actually, that's one of the best watch groups in the city. That's John Villa and those guys. They're very organized. They have a good turnout at their meetings. And the police, and they have different speakers that usually come in from the community. And that's definitely one of the best groups in the city. So
They care about their community.
I'm going to do that. And you guys are talking about a good topic there, so I'm just going to listen in here and give other people a chance to call. There was one other thing I don't see, Cass, but John, if you could take a note for me.
Sure.
We had talked, me and Kaz had talked about the burned out street lights, the lights here on the bayfront before. And he was, he got somebody to move on that. They started to fix them, but it's like they stopped. They fixed a couple of them, and that's all further it's went. So maybe Kaz or you need to get back on that and find out what the heck's going on with that, because that's a safety issue. Them lights being burned out on the bayfront, and I got pretty nasty with Kaz, and told him he wasn't doing nothing about it, and he made all these promises to us and that, and I was wrong, because he was doing something about it, but it has stopped. So if you could do that, have him look into that, appreciate that.
I will, definitely. But I wonder, is that a city thing or a state? Is it a state road, the Bayfront Highway? So
I don't have any idea. All I know is, like I said, it's something that Kaz has been looking into for a long time, and he said that he was going to get it taken care of.
Right.
And I know some of it is state and some of it's city,
right.
But I don't know who's responsible for it. But I know if you go on the bayfront, every other light is gone. It's out.
Right.
And it's dark.
Right.
And there was one right there by McDonald's. There was two out right there, right before you make the left to get on the bayfront, right there at Brandell's.
Right.
And they got fixed, but then I don't know if that's different than the bayfront, because them ones actually ain't on the bayfront. I guess you can consider them on what is that street?
Elm Street, or it's off the McDonald's on Elm Street by the bay.
Yeah, but the other way, 26th Street, or I don't know what that goes into.
Fairmont.
It's the same street that Brandell's is on.
Right. Well, yeah, I got that written down. You see, the thing with Kaz is he hears when people call in, and he goes to these people and tells them, brings up what the complaints are, but he can't control when they go out and actually take care of it. But I know he does, when people call this show, he does try to do what he can to get results for you guys, so.
Yeah, he does. You're right. And like I said, I got a little nasty because I was just getting frustrated. You know, it was like a long, long time, and I apologized to him because I was wrong.
Right.
I felt really stupid because I said, Gerald, there ain't nothing being done. I said, I'd make $500 donation to your favorite charity if something was done with it.
Right.
And bam, something got done with it. But and like I said, it has stopped. So if you guys could check into that. Then I'm going to go here. Like I said, I'm interested in what you guys are talking about.
All right, thanks for calling.
Okay, John. Bye-bye.
Anybody else wants to call in, go ahead.
We have the numbers up on the screen, as always.
They're at 870, we can see ourselves on television, right there.
Not a pretty sight, always.
TV adds 10 pounds, they say. So we're really not this.
Let's answer the phone now.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
No, I hope I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but I was heading west on East 38th Street, leaving Tops, and on 38th and Tuttle, I came across this little knoll on 38th Street, and this woman is in the street in her electric wheelchair, and I had to go in the other lane to get around her, and all these brand new curb cuts were finished at the time.
Right.
Now, it's ridiculous. These people cry and moan. They want these curb cuts, and they don't freaking use them.
Right. Well, Carl and I, we were driving down, was that 38th Street? Remember we were driving down the street and the woman was coming towards us?
Right. That was East 38th.
Was it?
Yeah.
And she was coming like right towards us in the traffic, and if there was cars in front of us, and we couldn't even, I could see her because I was on the passenger side, but Carl couldn't and she was driving right, if Carl would have swerved over or just moved over a little bit, she would have got hit. So, we definitely understand what you're saying. I think if the sidewalks and curb cuts are there, and the sidewalks aren't trash, then they should be on those, because they wanted, the special needs community wanted those put in.
Well, and it's required by law.
It is?
It's now required by law, which is why they're working so hard to get all of them done.
This happened to be a woman also.
Oh, was it?
Yes. Now, if they're going to ride in this street, it ought to be mandatory to have these vehicles, wheelchairs, have a flag on them on an antenna.
Right.
For the safety of the people who are in the wheelchair, certainly.
Correct.
And others. But, one of the things we need to do is begin to educate the people in the handicapped community that there are now the cutouts available. Many times the people do use the sidewalks to go 2 or 3 blocks only to find out that there's no longer the curb cutouts because they're still quite a bit under construction.
No,
but I think we need to get the word out.
Time I've seen her.
Yeah, we totally agree with you. I mean, we've spent, this community and all cities are spending a lot of money to make sure that they're handicapped accessible, and it's just, they should use them.
Correct.
No question.
Absolutely. For their safety and just an overall, for their safety, period.
But maybe one thing the city could do is get the word out to the organizations that help handicapped people and let them know that the curb cuts are there and that they should be informing their constituents.
Well, I think they need to know it's the law.
It is a law.
I didn't know it was a law.
There's no question about it, yeah.
They should know that. And if, are you going to cite a handicapped person for driving? That's he's right with what he's saying. It's very dangerous.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But they should make it mandatory to have a flag if they're going to ride in the street.
Right.
That makes very good sense.
That comes through education, and again, through the organizations that assist handicapped people. They should be making sure that they're telling their constituents what needs to be done for the proper safety measures.
Okay, that's all I want to complain about.
Okay, we'll make I got that down. We'll let Kaz know, and we'll see what we can do about it.
And a very valid point.
That is. Thanks for calling, man.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, there's different, he's right. Remember, we were just talking about that woman in the wheelchair driving down the street, and we almost hit her.
And it happens more often than people imagine.
I know, yeah. Go ahead, you're on the air.
I have a question about the handicap ramps.
Sure.
What about the ones that don't go anywhere? Where all that wasted money and time is involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you want to have access.
You want to have them where they need to be. See, they don't need to be in boulevards, and who is going to shovel them and keep them clean in those boulevards?
Nobody.
And what about the one out there by Vendetti's lot that they put one in and goes right into a blank field? I mean, the people that are installing these have to look and see what they're doing, and if there's a question, they should call the state in, they should call their own engineers in. The engineers in this town have let too many things get away from them.
That's certainly a valid point, but again, it's under the
It's under the FDA.
we're under federal law to make sure that
just like above on Upper Peach Street, they're putting in $15 million worth of sidewalks. My question is this: who's going to shovel them sidewalks?
right.
They're doing all that work up there. A guy almost got killed down there last week. And I'll bet you dollars for donuts that those sidewalks will not be maintained.
Well, I know Lecom is buying a lot of that. Is that what you're talking up by
Talking
Lecom?
about Upper Peach Street,
Right.
all the way down from 38th Street, all the way up to the thruway.
Oh, right. Well, with Lecom, a lot of those businesses are on, and
Their stuff.
Lecom is buying a lot of that property up there, and a lot of those other property. There's not a lot. It's mostly commercial up there.
Well, they're building I think they're building an apartment building now where the tire companies and everything use, right away from their gym or whatever they call it. Their
The Lecom Fitness Center.
yeah, right. They purchase a lot of property there.
I think they're putting up isn't it a senior living center or something?
That's what that's going
Yes.
to be there. I think it's supposed to be 147 rooms.
Right.
So I think they'll plow that area. They'll keep those.
Well, Lecom.
Their end of it clean, but I'm talking about these other businesses,
Yeah. Well, getting them to keep. Well, you'd think that being a business, they would want their sidewalks clear.
Well, that whole thing there, that's what got Mark Ellis thrown out of office. Because he brought that up, that the businesses should be keeping their sidewalks cleared.
Right.
And the way the city enforces that ordinance, you might as well just blow smoke.
Right.
Because you got to give them notice and everything else. But 2 weeks and certified, and this is baloney.
Right.
Buffalo, Cleveland, all the other places, you got 24 hours to take care of it, or they're right there.
Right.
Let's get back down to the Berry Memorial and the Dobbins Landing and the whole shot there. What's that gentleman's name next to you? I didn't
Carl.
catch his name.
Carl Anderson's his name.
Who? Carl Anderson?
Yes.
So, I haven't heard anything about your researching the Rumbles, the McAllisters, the Smileys, the Nolans. Have you researched them in your field there?
Actually, I've done quite a bit of research on all of the early families that were settlers here in Erie County, and specifically those that were involved in the War of 1812, and I have a list of roughly about 850 different families.
I thought Joe Diebold was in the War of 1812. He was one of the guys that made piers and everything else when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another name. Had you brought anything in about when Lafitte was in here in Erie?
When the Marquis de Lafayette came in.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's kind of it's interesting that you bring that up, because one of these Dobbins families that I've been in contact with that lives in Philadelphia, they actually have the dining room table that belonged to Daniel Dobbins that he entertained the Marquis de Lafayette at for the dinner party that they had for him when he was in Erie in 1825.
Now, they did that on 2nd and French.
Correct. 3rd and French, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they had an outdoor picnic. At one time on 2nd and French and coming over State Street, there was a bridge, and they laid out an outdoor picnic out on the bridge, and then where Hammett Hospital is now, they had a community-wide celebration for the Marquis de Lafayette when he was here. And this gentleman that lives in Philadelphia has the dining room table that they entertained at, and he also has part of the china set that the Marquis de Lafayette gave to Daniel Dobbins and his family as a thank you for entertaining him while he was here in Erie.
Did you know there was a cannon on top of Peachtree?
No.
There was one on top of Peachtree way back when. I don't know where that disappeared to, but it's somewhere.
It's amazing how things get shuffled around.
And just like the old, down by the old fort down there where soldiers and sailors used to have their home.
Right.
Now, I was a kid growing up down there. I knew that waterfront well. All the boathouses around there, and all the good old days are gone.
Yeah, yep.
Got that right.
And unfortunately, the blockhouse down there is just, it's a shame, the disrepair that's fallen into.
That when I was a kid way back when.
Well, I remember even when I was a kid, they used to have it open, and you could go.
You had it open, you could climb in there.
Right.
And the whole thing in there, it was amazing.
And you can't even get in there now.
Oh, it's a shame.
It's completely inaccessible.
I think we should have a plan for that thing.
There's been a group that has been trying to work with the Pennsylvania Soldiers and Sailors Home to either have access to the blockhouse or have the blockhouse moved. And I've been involved with a group that has been talking and having discussions and trying to make that happen, because if we're talking about Erie's history, that's the beginning right there.
I think that should be all restored and it should be made nice. Yeah, I have nothing against Mark Alexandrovich, but bringing in a piece of steel, and I have all respect for the firemen for 9/11, but I think we should be doing more things up here for ourselves. Let New York take care of themselves. If it was down in Somerset County, where they hit the one down there,
right?
They're getting all that money. It's a nice lot. It's a nice gesture, but we should take care of our home stuff first.
I think there's room for, that, the New York thing, the steel thing as well. I think it'll be nice down at the library, but we need to do something with the monument over there.
The assets that we have.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that where it sits and it overlooks the wastewater plant, and the fact that nobody even, unless you're from here, knows where it's at, and you can't get into it, I think that if you took that and moved it somewhere to a more visible site, perhaps maybe down by the GAF site area, put a little fort around it, that would be what would be known as where you bring, what's that called? A tourist, not a tourist attraction, but like an anchor.
There's no question it would be an anchor to the community.
It would be something when you come around that curve, you see that there, and it's part of this community, instead of up on that hill where nobody knows it's at,
Right.
where it's disgusting.
It's behind the modern Soldiers and Sailors Home now, and no one knows that, sir. The whole thing here is the biggest problem we got into was the Port Authority. Those authorities, they're self-sustaining. They don't answer to anybody. And they almost have Dobbins Landing shut off to the public. There's a big thing going, they shut it down, and that's for the public.
Well, they shut it down at night, too.
Yeah, they shut it down at night. When I was a kid, we were down there 24 hours a day. There was no problems.
Right. Well, that's...
I mean, they get like the tall ships coming in, they'll be anchored along there, they'll come down and slam it down and shut it down. Who's going to get the money from the admission to the end of the landing and go see the boats?
That'll probably go to the flagship Niagara League, won't it?
But
Yeah, the flagship Niagara League is the sponsor. The Perry 200 has given the major sponsorship to the flagship Niagara League to underwrite having the parade of sails and the Tall Ship Festival here, and then that money goes to the Niagara League.
Well, that's the problem, I believe, with your PR people. They should be out there telling them. They had coloring books for kids. They had T-shirts and all that. It's just by by word of mouth and you have something, it should be, the Times News should be picking up this constantly.
Actually, John, was it in today's paper?
Yeah, there was a piece in today's paper.
About the coloring books and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got my T-shirts and everything else. I've had them for 4 weeks now.
Right.
How many people know that you're distributing coloring books? How many people? Of course, there's no coins.
Well, they came from Ohio.
Yeah, they got plenty of those, and how they even got a $5 gold silver piece with the Commodore on it.
You told me you got a coin, correct, from Ohio, right, John?
Yeah, I've got a coin. I've got the Philadelphia Mint, Denver Mint, and San Francisco Mint. I got 3 rolls. Plus, I've got a little commemorative, a 3-piece. In fact, I sent one to Kaz.
The one thing we should be proud of, I should mention, John, is I had an opportunity to go to Put-in Bay, where the battle has taken place and where the national focus is as far as the Battle of Lake Erie. And the people in our community should be very proud that the celebration that the Perry 200 is putting on is 10 times, maybe 20 times
Yes, but
the size of
out there in the bay.
Of there.
Mark Finley. Mark Guy Finley. His ghost runs around Put-in Bay.
I don't think he's dead yet, is he?
He's still around.
So it's not his ghost. That's probably him in person. It's not his ghost.
I think it might be Mark himself out there running around.
That's him in his boat out there.
Yeah, he's still got the energy to do it.
At least he doesn't have a tombstone thing with his meter ticking.
That's true.
He has one of those, don't you? Whitey Cleaver up in Wintergreen Court Cemetery.
Well, he's still ticking.
Have a great day, guys.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the pudding. So they're not. What are they doing up there? I mean,
their celebration really is just focused on September 10th. I mean, they've done. I was amazed at the lack of any type of organized activities throughout the summer, and there's a few publications, but everything is just geared to September 10th for the day of the battle, and when the Tall Ships Festival comes down the lake to Put-in Bay. But the Erie celebration, what we've put on for 2 years, it's phenomenal what we've been able to accomplish.
Absolutely. Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hey guys, I just had to call back with a comment about the handicapped people.
Sure.
Until, unfortunately, somebody dies getting hit in a wheelchair, or until the police start citing people, nothing's going to be done. People with disabilities, I know that's not what their name is, but they were suing cities and that to get them handicap ramps put in. They were filing lawsuits against cities who didn't have them handicap ramps in, and now they don't even use them. Of course, up in Erie, they didn't never use them to begin with. Erie's the only city I've ever seen that people walk right down the middle of the street without moving out of your way. And until the police cite somebody, because they have no business riding a wheelchair in the road, and people have no business walking down the middle of the road. And somebody's going to get killed someday, and until they do something, nothing's going to be done. And I do want to make one other real quick comment, and I know this is a touchy subject, but I have noticed, I play the lottery a lot, and some tickets. And I've been noticing a lot of the refugees people here that's coming to Erie playing the lottery. And I'm more curious about where they're getting this money, and they're living so down the hop that they can afford to buy lottery tickets. I've had a problem with this for a long time. These people come to Erie, we support them. International Institute pays the rent. They don't work, regardless of what anybody says. And now they're spending their money on the lottery. They get their food stamps, they pack their food up, and they send it back to their home, where they come from. I mean, this is a problem in Erie. What is going on here? This town is being taken over by refugees and immigrants.
Well, it was in the...
It's getting a little ridiculous. I'll hear your comments and I'll let you go.
Okay. There was just something in the there was an article in the paper yesterday about the demographics changing, and he's absolutely right. It's a double-edged sword. Tell me if you agree. We need to reach a certain population level for federal money. And there's let's face it, there's nobody moving up here from down south, or there's nobody moving up here from anywhere else because there's no jobs here. So the only way that we can keep our population steady or rising is through bringing in illegal immigrants, or not illegal immigrants, but immigrants. I think that it's a good thing. I mean, we all want our race and our nationality. We all want to prosper, and this is America. I mean, we want people to succeed, but bringing these people in has caused a lot of inner city problems that are only going to get worse. I mean, do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, in all circumstances, we have to take the good with the bad, so to speak, and certainly having a new influx of people, a new influx of ideas, a new influx of energy helps a community grow. It helps us reflect on who we are and where we want to be and who we want to be in the future. And certainly for the hardworking immigrants that have come into our community, we don't want to discount the positive things that they've done and brought into the community. But unfortunately, there is an element in every group and growing pains, so to speak, in a community or whatever you want to term it. But there is that element that just tries to get by and just wants to live off the public dole. And it's just very unfortunate, but that shouldn't take away from the positive things that many of the immigrants, hardworking, well-educated people have come into the community and have helped be involved and really make an effort to be a good community citizen.
It just seems like they are hardworking people. A lot of immigrants, they are hardworking people, and they want to work, but there's no jobs. So what happens when you can't survive? What do you do to survive?
Right.
So you either, you have to resort to crime.
There's a certain element that gets involved in the criminal element of our community.
And then they see, the advantages of selling drugs, the quick buck that you can make. They get involved in that, and it's not just immigrants; it's everybody.
Right, it's across the board.
Yeah, So there are a lot more. What was it? 20% increase, I think they were saying. Of all the addition, and they're from Bosnia
right.
and other parts of the world, which is great. But they're mostly moving all into the city, and we need people with money to move into the city, so we can expand on some of the things that we have to make the city more vibrant, more cost efficient, so we can start lowering the taxes on everybody that live in the city to make it more affordable and bring people into the city that have money, can spend money, and can pay the taxes because the nonprofits aren't.
Well, and John, there's certainly a lot of positive things that are happening in the community, and many times, unfortunately, all we hear about, all we read about is the negative things that are happening in the community. And of course, all of us are concerned with the city as it appears to begin to deteriorate. But there are positive things happening. There's positive things happening in downtown. There's positive things happening on the Lower East Side of Erie with redevelopment and certainly the investments that Erie Insurance has done. But there's positive things happening in other elements of the community, and we can even break it down to simple things like there's an organization called the Crossover Organization, and certainly all of us know that there's definitely issues in the black community that need to be addressed, and this group is working hard within their own community to try and address those issues.
Who are some of those? I think Ron is Ron?
Ron Paisley is one of the people, tremendous guy, is really working hard to do what he can to help the inner city kids. And one of the things that he's doing is doing that through basketball with the Crossover organization. But it's not just getting kids together in organized basketball and then leaving them off to the streets. It's sitting and talking to them about the importance of education, the importance of having a belief in yourself and believing in something bigger than you, having a spiritual being, and what that means to being a positive citizen and having discipline and being able to take care of the responsibilities that you have. Those are the type of groups that we need in our community, the groups like Crossover that are helping the inner city kids. And we need groups like that, like the International Institute, that are trying to help some of the immigrant groups coming into the community. Through education, through knowledge, that's how we're going to be able to get these the elements, these undesirable elements of these groups into a position in the community where they're making a positive effort instead of a negative one.
Right. Well, your son, I know he was a basketball player for Mercier's Prep, and he's going to Wittenberg now. So you have been firsthand, you have seen what goes on up at Spoons League, which is a great program, and this Crossover thing. You know, what type of, how many kids are involved in these programs?
Well, Crossover has roughly 96 kids in their program now. It's grown. It started a few years back with about 20 kids. They now have 11 different basketball teams that they take to various tournaments, and they also put on local tournaments. But you mentioned Spoons League. Mel Weatherspoon has been a positive influence in the African community in Erie for many, many years, and he certainly gets very little credit for the basketball league that he's put together, a summer program known as the Spoons League, which is played up at Booker T. Washington Center and at 19th and Holland, and it gives these kids in the inner city some hope, something, a goal to look to dream, and it gives them opportunity. And Mel has been a tremendous influence, and Curtis Jones has recently gotten involved in that, has been a tremendous influence with those kids.
Hold that thought. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. I'd like to compliment you guys on the fine show you have today. The ratings are going through the roof for you guys.
Well, thanks. At least we got a couple people watching, so we just add one a week, we'll be okay.
John, you took the words right out of my mouth that Wayne Blockhouse should be moved, and the GAF property would be a good place for it.
Well, I'll tell you exactly where I was thinking about, and Carl thinks the same as well, I think. We took some people down there to look. Right between the water department and the GAF property, there is a space right there. It's not directly on the GAF property, correct? It would be Water Authority property.
Water Authority property.
As you come around that curve, you see that blockhouse, and any development that you put on the GAF site could complement the historical aspect of Erie, whether it's the mixed use or whatever they put in there, that could only be a draw for people to come down to that bayfront. So,
Draw people coming right off the thruway going to downtown Erie. But
we've been involved with some people that have been talking about those plans, and Dave Brennan, a member of Erie City Council, who's an architect, has been talking about those type of plans and is certainly aware and is interested in making sure that something happens in a positive way to the Wayne Blockhouse.
And just my last point, I agree with most of what you said about the immigrants and all that, but you guys are forgetting one important word. A lot of these people are refugees. If you watch the news every night, very seldom do you hear of a Vietnamese, Laotian, Nepalese, or Bhutanese people getting arrested for anything. Now, I will grant you there are a few from time to time, but these people are just running into a rough resettlement, just like the Germans, the Irish, the Polish, and right in early 1900s here in Erie. They have to work out a few rough spots. I know the parents are having trouble finding work, but my daughter works with these refugees in one of the local public schools, and she and the other teachers are doing tremendous work with these people. They're learning English, and these kids, they come here, and within a year or two, their English is more perfect than what we speak sometimes. And I just don't want the refugees and the immigrants to get a bad rap here. Not that you guys really knocked them or anything, but I just want to set the record straight. And there are problems, but as they settle here in Erie, like you said, John, it'll keep our population up, and they will create their own jobs and industries, hire their own people, and our economy will eventually grow, even if it might take another 5 to 10 years or longer.
Right.
So that's all I want to say, but thanks for putting on a good show today, guys.
No problem.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
calling.
Okay.
I mean, there's no question that, in today's world of instant everything, instant knowledge with computers, instant access to people, everybody wants things to happen immediately, but every group that's immigrated into this country has had a time of assimilation, and we need to give them that equal time.
Go ahead, you're on the air.
Well, thank God we live in America where you have freedom of speech.
Right. We agree.
Because I couldn't disagree more.
Okay. In what way? You might want to turn your TV down.
Remain a poor city because we're bringing all these people in here. They're not working, and we're supporting them. Government supporting them. So how's Erie bettering its city by bringing these people in here and giving them everything? And now they're spending their money on the lottery.
Right.
So I disagree, gentlemen. Something has to be done about all these people coming into this city. They're not working. We don't have the jobs for them. All they're doing is taking. Thank you.
Okay. A lot of these people, I mean, they lived in, before they came to Erie, they lived in squalor. I mean, when you're living in a hut, I mean, in any neighborhood, I mean, just running water, they're happy to have. So, I mean, think about back when the earlier immigration days, during the time we had the Industrial Revolution, there were jobs everywhere. You could come here, you could get a job. Can you imagine trying to come somewhere to live in a new country and there's no work?
Right.
So, I mean, you want to help these people on the other hand, but they need to sustain when they're here. You know, they need to start flourish. Each generation needs to get better and better and better to the point where they're not at the poverty level. So, are these people hard workers? Yes, they are. Are they smart? Well, according to some educational averages, the United States is down the list as far as that goes.
Right.
So they're smart. They want to work. Okay. They need a hand up. Yes. But are there social problems that come with them being here? No doubt about it.
No question. But education and discipline, it's how if you go back in history, how every immigrant group that's come into this country that has been, that's had prejudice against them, that has been put down, they've all tied up their bootstraps and they've worked hard, they've gotten an education, and their descendants today are a part of the mainstream of America. And we can go right back to any group you want to mention, whether it's Swedish, Irish, Polish, Czechoslovakian, the newer immigrants today, Asian immigrants, any group that we want to talk about.
Right.
Discipline, hard work, and education is what's brought those groups up.
I mean, they just need to, and people in poverty, they just tend to rely on gambling, which brings up the casino, which is a whole nother. We just got the 1 minute sign. We could spend a whole nother show talking.
I mean, the cycle of poverty. It's an issue across the country. 80% of the people that grow up in poverty are going to be impoverished themselves. Only 20% of the people make their way out of poverty, and so it's a vicious, repetitive cycle. And for those people that can break out, we don't want to lump them in a group of people that we say are, not hardworking and shouldn't deserve to be here, because they've certainly worked hard, and as you said, John, come from backgrounds where some of them are happy to even be living in a hut, that they even have that much. And they come here and they really are thankful for the opportunities that they've been given, and they work hard and really make a positive impact on the community.
I agree. Well, we only got a couple seconds left, and I want to thank everybody for calling today, but there's somebody that I want to say something to real quick. I want everybody that watches this show to call their mother today and tell them that they love her. As I talked about before, my mother has been stricken with cancer, and she and I and the rest of our family are going through a tough time. We found out that chemo is not going to work anymore. So my mother, as brave as she is, she's braver than I am, has decided that she's just going to live out the rest of her days without being in pain from the chemo. So I want her to know that I love her, and nobody out there should take any day for granted. So if you have a parent out there, mother, father, somebody, just give them a call and tell them that you love them. But on a good note, Carl, thanks for coming in. Apparently a couple of people like the show, so I'm sure my uncle and them are probably like, they're talking about the Perry 200 again, about city stuff.
John, one thing we should say is the one caller called in and said, thank God that we're in America, that we can speak our mind. And, with all the problems that we have and putting things aside, ultimately, we're all in this together. We're all people. And we should be thankful of every day that we're here. And your mom has been a tremendously brave person and has battled and has perseverance. And it's a difficult time for you and your family, and we're all with you. Our thoughts are with you. But all of us should know that each day is precious, that we're here.
Absolutely. I tried to give Mark Neidig a call from the Kansas Research to have him on the show, but he was in San Francisco. But we need to get him on here and start pushing some buttons and getting this thing rolling and doing the best we can as a community to get behind that project. But that's a whole nother show. But we're going to sign off now. I want to thank Carl once again and thank all the staff here, and especially Mike. Without Mike, this show doesn't happen. So thanks a lot, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching the Taxpayers Hotline Show on Erie's own Government Access, Channel 9.